Republican candidates for president addressed the Republican Jewish coalition. All three Republican Jews all came to display their credentials in supporting Israel. Thank you. It's like Jews in Sports. You ever hear that? The book Jews in Sports, it's a short book. So they're there to show their support for Israel and try to win the endorsement of Sheldon Adelson, the casino billionaire who donates millions of dollars to Republican candidates who are very strong on Israel. But it is again Donald Trump who is standing out as he remains strong in the polls, while Ben Carson drops. Republican strategist John Burnett is back here on Arise Exchange. I can make Jewish jokes. That's okay. Are we focused too much on the polls?
Absolutely. People need to pay more attention to what the candidates are saying. Trump has offended more people than than you can imagine. And, you know, the thing is,
during the speech in front of the Republican Jewish coalition, he was saying, you know about tough negotiation. In fact, you probably have renegotiated things. I mean, he sort of played into every Jewish stereotype.
Absolutely.
And yet they applauded him.
You know, the thing at the end of the day is that polls don't win elections. Votes do.
And we should note that the polls in the last two elections have been wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, you know, while he might experience a brief spike in the polls, at the end of the day, it's all about the people that were making it to the polls.
Okay, so let me ask you why you think, and David Brooks, by the way, the conservative columnist for the New York Times, has a similar story today, basically, that people are going to get either into the polling booths or in Iowa where you have caucuses. So you get in a room and you start talking to people. Now, you're really going to stand next to your friends and neighbors and vote for Donald Trump. Is that what you're saying is going to end up here?
Absolutely. You know what? It's making me think that, you know what, they keep calling the same 1,000 people. You know, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be more than the people that they've called during the polling sessions. I think people will begin to really think about who is going to move America forward, who is not going to ossify D.C. any more than what it already is.
Okay. So if you look at the current crop then, Ben Carson is losing steam now, at least temporarily, and he might say the polls don't mean anything right now. So maybe Ben Carson, he's going to be strong in Iowa. There's a big evangelical vote there. He should have a good performance there. But you look at the current crop now, who is going to benefit from when the air sort of goes out of Trump, if it does?
You know, I have a financial background, so I was never a day trader. So I don't pay attention to polls. I'm a long-term investor. And I think voters need to have the same type of philosophy.
But sometimes the bubble bursts too late. And couldn't that not happen here to the GOP?
And you look at who has greater value, long-term value. You know, at some point, the reality TV show is going to be canceled.
Okay. But is it going to be canceled before the primaries are over? Ted Cruz is looking more and more like the serious candidate there as someone who can come back. Jeb Bush is still hanging in there, even with low poll numbers. Is he sort of thinking, I just have to ride out this wave? People are going to sober up and make the right call?
Well, they all have hope. and the voter will actually determine who's going to move forward.
Even George Pataki has hope?
Well, let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. There's a lot of people still at the kiddie table. I want to know when they're going to remove the undercard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's more of a distraction. Now, with that said, people like Pataki, Bobby Jindal, and so forth, Lindsey Graham, they'll be beneficial once the Republican nominee is selected.
Why?
Because the party is somewhat a little fragmented at this juncture. People put their bets on different people. All candidates need to coalesce, make sure they rally their base behind the Republican nominee. So everyone has value at this point.
We mentioned Sheldon Adelson here. So if you're Sheldon Adelson, who has thrown hundreds of millions of dollars into the Republican campaigns and through PACs, and has a very specific agenda, as we know, and in the past he's been the establishment player here. If you're him, what strategy do you have? Because you are not picking Donald Trump right now, and you're looking at the candidates in front of the Republican Jewish coalition, which was frankly an embarrassment for some of them. What is he going to do?
You know, the thing is, at the end of the day, I think he'll definitely get behind the Republican nominee because when you look across the aisle, the alternative is not the best interest of anyone.
The alternative is not which is Hillary Clinton. All right, so let's talk about the convention. Too early to talk about a broker convention. I mean, we in the media would love a broker convention, right? We love to go in there not knowing who's going to come out. There's even a story that Mike Bloomberg is going to come to the rescue of the Republican Party in a brokered convention.
You know, along with these erratic polls come rumors. So neither of which is good in the financial world, and they don't serve any purpose with respect to real politics, real clear politics, so to speak. So I don't think we need to give into these rumors or to the latest polls, but look at each person's platform and who is likely to have a good shot to be Hillary.
But you talk about Donald Trump, and he's offending a lot of people. But if you look at his platform, he has some very serious points that seem to be resonating on a populist level. Immigration is certainly one of them. Right. The idea that CEOs of companies are paid too much money, that pharmaceutical mergers shouldn't be taking place. All of a sudden, those seem like pretty serious issues. He seems to be a pretty serious guy when you maybe get him out of the reality TV studio.
Yeah, but I don't think you can get the reality TV mantra out of him. You know, he's going to continue to say the same thing over and over and over, and people will realize that his campaign spiel is on a loop over and over and over with no new ideas.
Let me ask you about the Democrats for a moment here. We have sort of seen Bernie Sanders sort of, again, they're poll-driven, right? But he's sort of fizzling a little bit, or at least he's
That's self-inflicted. The moment he decided in the first debate not to attack Hillary on emails, he started going down from that point.
That's an interesting comment. He didn't want to get into the mud, or if you will, or maybe it's a legitimate
issue.
Not mud. But how much does this hurt Hillary Clinton to not have a real challenger so far in the primary?
Well, in a lot of people's minds, she didn't have a real challenger in 2008. We all know how that turned out.
But there was somebody at least there in the race. There's nobody there at the moment in the race.
True. And I think that that will actually hurt the left because there's no excitement.
Right.
You know, people like to see...
And there's a risk that the Democrats won't come out and vote.
Right, and she won't be battle-tested.
And she won't be battle-tested. Well, okay, she's gone through a lot of battles. She did put up 11 hours in front of Congress. The next Republican debate is in 2 weeks. What to
December
expect?
15th.
Who needs to do really well?
I think everyone that has scored somewhere in the single digits need to do well in order to stay afloat.
So Rand Paul, John Kasich,
well,
almost everybody.
Yeah, exactly, except for Trump, Carson, and Cruz, and Rubio.
And Rubio, maybe.
Yeah, Rubio. His interview this morning didn't go too
Did
well.
not do too well, yeah.
But everyone's allowed an off day. Let's not beat him up too badly.
Okay, John Burnett, thank you.
Great,
no off
thank
days
you.
here.